freezing, very, very cold and rainy Cape Town. Not that that's unusual for the past couple of weeks, but I hope you're all warm and dry wherever you are. And yeah, this is a very exciting session today. Not just because it's always great to host any of these sessions with clients, with alumni, with students, with people in industry, and it's an opportunity to share learnings and our experience from the past. But also because it's a subject matter that's very close to my heart. It's been very close to my heart for a number of years, and similarly for my co-host Sue today. It's something that she's very, very passionate about as well. So very excited to be able to share some of our experience in that. I think before we get moving, I'm going to ask our lovely assistant, Kat, from our marketing team, who is off screen or off camera at the moment. He's going to post a poll. We just want to get a sense of who you are and what your specific interest in learnerships is. So that we can make sure we try and tailor the content and the discussion a little bit towards, or to cater to some of the diverse interests. I will say at the outset that this session is very much framed towards employers and very much framed towards HR managers, learning and development managers, or anyone running a learnership. So we're framing it from that side. It's not intended for people who are learners or who are wanting to be learners, and I can see from some of the attendees who've signed up that there might be some of those, but that should in no way prevent you from getting valuable insights and stuff from this. But by all means, if you are or have been a learner as well, please do contribute, post comments. Ask questions. I think your experience is absolutely crucial in making sure that not only Red and Yellow is training provided, but also to employers and to many of the others on the session today are able to deliver really, really great programs. I'm just going to run through some of the house rules to make sure that everything moves smoothly and that we all know how to make the most of this. We have a Q&A function at the bottom. Please post your questions in this. We will try periodically to get to them. And if we aren't able to get to all of the questions, we will try and make sure that we follow up with you after the session. Many of you we know already, and those we don't, always a fantastic opportunity to meet you and to speak to you. If you've got any other comments or input that you'd like to make, please make use of the chat functionality. If you get disconnected from Zoom, simply use the original link and you can just rejoin. And don't worry if you miss anything. We're going to try and move quite quickly and cover quite a lot of ground today. We will be sharing the recording of the session afterwards. We will also be sharing the deck. And we are also going to be publishing a blog post afterwards with a summary of everything that we discussed. So there's plenty of opportunity to catch up. And again, if you want to chat with any of us after this, please, by all means, just reach out to us, corporatetraining@redandYellow.coza. We'll share the address as well in the chat, but yeah, you're welcome to get in touch with us, and we're always on hand to assist. I'm just making sure I've covered all of the main talking points. As a benefit for everyone who is to make sure that you're incentivized to stick through to the end, we will be providing a link to our learnership guide. It's a document that we produced a couple of years ago because we couldn't find a good one ourselves, and we realized that there was great value in not just for educating, upskilling ourselves and our own teams and for people coming into the Red and Yellow environment, but also for our clients and anyone who is participating in any sense in the learnership ecosystem. And it's proven to be very popular, and I think it's still a fantastic guide. So we'll be posting a link at the end. All right, so some good feedback from the poll. It looks like most people who are attending, which is right, because this is the priority targets, people who are responsible for managing learnerships in organizations. There's quite a few people who are interested in finding out more and are potentially looking to run learnerships. And we've got some good representation from HR and skills development professionals and from people working for training providers. All right, Kat, I think we can end the poll. That gives Sue and I quite a bit of valuable information, and I think we can now move forward. I'm going to do a couple of quick introductions. If I can get my slides to move. There we go. All right. My name is Andrew Allison. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at the Red and Yellow School. I'm a MAC Sector Charter Council member, so that's the council looking after the marketing, advertising, and communication sector in the BE space. I'm also a Transformation Council member for the Interactive Advertising Bureau, South Africa, and the Director of the Advertising Regulatory Board. So I fairly well spread over the marketing advertising landscape, and I've had a particular personal interest in driving transformation in the industry, but in the country, more broadly over the last 10 years. And my co-host today, I'll let her introduce herself, but is somebody that I've had the real pleasure of working with for more than 10 years, and not just in learnerships, but in agency and so beyond just Red and Yellow, but somebody who I think shares the passion, and in many of the learnership programs that we've run through Red and Yellow, Sue and I have been involved from the early days and setting them all the way up, and obviously just overseeing and making sure that our learnership offering has grown from strength to strength. Sue, over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm Sue Little, and I manage online and corporate education at Red and Yellow. So as Andrew mentioned, we've both been in industry for many, many years. Before I moved into education, I was in industry for over a decade. And when I came into education, I started teaching on-campus learnerships. And throughout my career in industry, we had to tackle this massive skills gap of digital and interactive advertising and marketing. Education just didn't exist. So we've been embracing this challenge for many, many years now. But what I'm hoping to share with everybody here is I feel that I've got quite a unique perspective when it comes to running learnerships, because I've been on the client side and seen the skills gap. I have not only delivered learnerships for many, many years as a program manager, and now I run the whole team, but also as a lecturer and a registered assessor. So I've seen like the end-to-end full scope of the process. And hopefully with today's session, I can really give you some insights on the lessons and the learnings and the things that have really worked for us over the years.
Great, thanks. So you'll be hearing mostly from Sue in a little bit, but we're going to try and keep this very conversational and very light. Sue and I talk about this stuff all the time, so it's just a natural feeling. This is a very natural extension of things that we talk about already. For those who aren't familiar with Red and Yellow, I think most of you are. Just a very quick intro. We're one of South Africa's top marketing, advertising, and design colleges. We're a leading provider of digital marketing and design training on the continent. Since 2020, we've been a member of the Honoris United Universities Network, which is the largest and first Pan-African network of higher educations on the continent, spanning, I think, 35 campuses, and there's about 72,000 students. And critically for Red and Yellow, we're born and rooted in industry across 4 decades, almost. That started in 1994, so next year will be 30 years old. And those industry roots we've kept very, very close to our heart throughout the near 30-year journey that we embarked on. Our mission, once the slide loads. I think Sue and I are both navigating. Now, our mission is to teach the great creators, inventors, leaders, and entrepreneurs of the 21st century. We believe that creative thinking is the most valuable skill of the future. Our accreditation framework, I think we're a rarity in this space in that we hold multiple accreditations. First and foremost, we are a private higher education institution. We're a business school accredited by the Council on Higher Education, so the same body that accredits the likes of the main public universities and many of our private institution counterparts. We're also accredited and operate a lot in the occupational space as well. So we've a number of accreditations with MICT CETA and moving across to QCTO when everything moves across over the course of the next year or so. And we've also recently joined the Marketing Association of South Africa as a institutional partner, which means that a lot of our programs and increasingly everything that we do will be CPD bearing. So we operate in a number of spaces, and this gives us a relatively unique perspective in how we build and how we deliver our programs, and that we can draw on real world-class higher education and business school caliber training and content, and we're able to deliver it in an occupational framework. So something we always say, world-class business school quality education wrapped in your skills development programs. So something that we think is relatively unique and certainly differentiates us from a lot of other training providers out there. And we've been running learnerships at Red and Yellow since 2014. So a number of years, many clients, many of them here. I think a number of you on the session will see your companies represented, and yeah, hundreds and hundreds of learners who've been through our programs. So between Sue and I, it's nearly 20 years of experience in managing learnerships. A lot of lessons learned, thankfully very few very hard ones, but certainly many hard ones and many bumps and scrapes along the way, and fortunately many fantastic partners on the employer side who've learned lessons with us, and we're going to be sharing some of those today. So thank you to all of you for your partnership over the years. We look forward to many more, and to any of you who are interested in speaking to us or potentially partnering with us on a learnership, please do reach out after the session. I'm going to hand over to Sue now, who's going to take us through the secrets to a successful learnership, and I will butt in occasionally with any bits and pieces of value that I think I have to add, as is Sue well knows is usually the case.
Okay, thanks so much, Andrew. I just want to quickly note that we do see your hand raised. So Bello, if you don't mind just popping your question in the Q&A chat, and then we can manage that throughout the journey. We'll hopefully be able to answer some questions live, if not at the end. So first and foremost, what is a learnership? For those that are new to learnerships, it's a work-based skills program. It is NQF registered qualification. We run learnerships with NQF level 5 and 6. But something that's very important to note about learnerships is the occupational qualification resulting in a lot of workplace learning. So what differentiates an occupational qualification such as a CETA accredited qualification and that one perhaps like the CHE is the workplace learning component is so much higher, which means somebody that goes through a learnership gets to practically apply their theory in the real world, preparing them for on-the-job success much more than if they were just focused on their books with a very small workplace learning component. It must be noted that I also get this question very often: what is happening to the CETA qualifications now with the QCTO, which is the qualification, the quality, okay, that one's dropped my mind. But what's important to note with the QCTO, the Quality Council of Trades and Occupation, it is a mouthful, is that they have redeveloped all the programs. All the current programs that have been unit standard aligned are now changing. Fortunately, we have been very involved in this process and very much consulted. I think from my perspective, I've also worked as the lead counsel on the IAB, and so I'm able to hopefully engage more and more industry in how we redevelop these qualifications. But they are going to be changed from unit standard based to comprise of the 3 components that you see on your screen: knowledge theory, practical component, and then an integrated external summative assessment. They may run for longer than 12 months, and we hope to start kicking off those programs in mid-2024. Right, before I go and get started on the secrets, I just wanted to put this out there. I do actually see some familiar names that are on the screen. I see them in the chat. I see them in the participants list, and it's a pleasure to have you guys here. Learnerships are the most incredible, rewarding journey for everyone if you get them right. And I think what we, as training managers, mentors, training institutions, all stakeholders, the impact that we make can literally change lives if we do it well. And I've seen success stories, I've seen sad stories where learners didn't get to put in their all for whatever reason, whether their own or whether their circumstances. Jess, so good to see you. And it's an opportunity to really realize that you're making a tremendous impact on our society today, and going far into diversity, inclusion, and really ensuring that we have representation throughout the industry and at all levels. So without further ado, let's get started. We've broken this down into 3 stages. Of course, we need to initiate a learnership. This takes careful planning. We need to deliver and run a learnership, and we want to make this to be as smooth and collaborative as possible across all the different stakeholders. And then finally, concluding a learnership. Learnerships do take a while to wrap up. Anything with a CETA accreditation does take a while, and there can be hiccups along the way if things aren't kept running smoothly. So let's get started with initiating our learnership. I always say if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And boy, have we learned the hard way over the years. So we really need to lead by example as a training institution, as the facilitators and lecturers. We need to demonstrate a growth mindset with our clients, with our students, and always fail forward. So we have made mistakes in the past, as have many other stakeholders. But the importance is that we take those learnings, and over the 7 years that I've been delivering learnerships here, where we've come from to where we are is a phenomenal space to be. And this is why we want to open up these learnings with everybody, every stakeholder within the business, so that we can collaboratively make sure that learnerships are incredibly successful. So tip number 1, I'm not going to mince words. Learnerships are a very demanding journey for all stakeholders. So it takes time and effort. If you don't commit to that upfront, your learners will suffer and the program success will ultimately be at risk. From the learner's perspective, completing a full qualification with up to 1,300 notional hours that need to be logged within a 12-month period while balancing work, life, and studies is a serious undertaking, and we need to accommodate them as much as possible. For training managers, particularly those of you who are new to learnerships or just need some guidance, please reach out to us. If you're one of our clients, let your training institution know that you need onboarding too. It's not just the learners. We are here to onboard you as well if we know that you've never done it before. And we have learned the value of this and developed and are developing guides like our learnership guides, and we're also developing a mentor guide to support you on this learning journey with us as stakeholders or with your training institution. But what comes out of this is that workplace learning component that these occupational qualifications offer these learners is second to none. It really sets them up for retention, moving straight into industry. It gives them a door into the industry. Whether they're an unemployed learner, and obviously it future-proofs them if they are an employed learner. Andrew, do you have any tips?
Yeah. So I mean, I think we've over the years have learned that the training managers and organizations that have run learnerships multiple times, they're typically easier to deal with because they know what's involved. But that should never be an obstacle to starting one for the first time for your business. There's a first time for everything. One of these things, they are fantastic programs, as Sue said, when they're done right. Kind of roll up your sleeves, jump into it, learn with us or with your training provider, but by all means let people know in advance, or let us, the team, know in advance that it is your first time. We will ask. I think we've become better at kind of gauging the level of experience and expertise, because that really will invest more in the orientation up front. So there's an element that needs to come from the training provider, and we'll try and do that as well. But I think always bear in mind with these programs, this is a full qualification that the learner is doing. That's at least a 12-month commitment. So you think of anyone who's worked and studied part-time, it's full on, and you're going to be managing, if you've got a big cohort, a number of learners, many of whom this might be their first tertiary qualification. For employed learners, they might have very demanding jobs. So people have challenges and issues that come up, and so just be prepared to navigate those and expect them, I think. Yeah.
So at Red and Yellow, we obviously prioritize, we're very student-centric, so we prioritize people above all, particularly our students, obviously our clients as well, and our partners. And we will literally do whatever it takes to get a learner over the finish line, including deferrals if that's possible. We offer them access to free counselors to navigate life's challenges, and these happen. We have seen every life challenge story you could possibly imagine, and then some. And we need to, wherever possible, remember that we are dealing with humans who are trying to, as Andrew mentioned, balance everything. And any type of learnership that is just a tick box exercise is those that don't have a high success rate. So what we want is partners and sponsors that get very involved with us, like interact, ask questions, and just making sure that we are looking at the learner as an individual and doing this to get them to be successful in their careers and to future-proof them.
I think this very much speaks to it. It's an organizational mindset and a mindset of everyone who's involved, that this isn't just a tax or a grudge purchase or something that you have to do because you need to get points. When it's done right, it's a fantastic way of developing pipeline for unemployed learnerships, of upskilling or reskilling people who are already within your organization in employed learnerships, and developing critical skills in the process. So, ideally try and find a program that is aligned with what your organization needs from a training perspective, and then say, well, we need this training anyway. We need this talent pipeline. We need these people. We need these skills. How can we do this, and how can we get this in a way that also serves our BE purposes and not the other way around? And we will always lean from that. As I said, we are first and foremost a business school, speaking from our own perspective on how these programs run. But we find when that is the mindset, there's more investment, more time, more accommodation, higher throughput, higher learner satisfaction, and just a better quality program for everyone involved. Yep.
So this actually takes us to our next tip. It feeds in quite well. So this one is a biggie for me and is relevant across the stakeholders, including the learners and managers, as much, everybody within the internal environment, whether it's employed or unemployed, but it's particularly for employed learners. So where we see high attrition near the start of a program is when learners, particularly the employed, are not consulted on the process, and they get placed on this training, and they're told they're starting training for a year in the next week, and they're not mentally prepared for it, and it comes as a shock, and it doesn't set them off on a great starting point to this journey with us. What we try and do on our side is make sure that the learners are informed, but that does need to come from internal communications. But on our side, we dedicate an entire week to orientate them, and I'll unpack that in a little bit later. But I wanted to mention a story of one of our long-term clients who continuously, and it's a big organization, one of the biggest, and everyone knows the brand, it's a big organization with a lot of people that need training. And they continuously see the highest throughput rate of all learnerships that we've ever offered. They have probably between a 90 to 100% throughput rate with each of their learnerships. And I would say, as a guess, and I haven't actually worked out the numbers, but I would say 70% throughput rate is a successful learnership. But they are consistently getting 90 to 100. And they've shared some bit of their wisdom with me, and it speaks to the internal culture of their business, of their organization. So they actually ask managers to nominate the people within their teams who deserve to have free education to upskill them. So it's framed in a way that we want you to nominate your team to say, you deserve this reward. And the learners then buy into it immediately because they realize it becomes part of their development plan, which we'll talk about in a bit. So it's an honor for them to join, and they commit from the get-go. Another thing with internal buy-in is that the training managers are very on top of things throughout the duration. They meet with us regularly. We often don't actually have much to talk about because they don't have really any red flag students, but this just speaks to their approach. And if I can echo that to every organization, make sure people are on board from the get-go and frame it as something that is a reward rather than, oh, I have to go on this training. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the flip of that is obviously the knee jerk, which is, it is a reality for a lot of businesses, and that is we suddenly realize come to the party very late. We need to run learnership. Let's either, if it's unemployed, let's do recruitment very, very quickly, or if it's an employed learnership, let's grab some people from our business and put them on the program. And we have, this happened in the past where we've had situations where people are only found out once, either we've been the first to communicate with them, they've literally found out a couple of days before the program starts, oh, by the way, you're on this program. And I don't know whether there's a thought process that people think, I'm being given free education, I should be grateful. And in fact, I think this process commoditizes the whole exercise and actually leads to resentment and just to the point, lack of buy-in. So I think this ties in with the previous point around planning. So, yeah.
Our final tip for this stage is recruitment, recruitment, recruitment. So learnerships, obviously, as we know, can be impactful and transformative in large scale reskilling or even restructuring exercises. What we are finding in the industry as we're going to see this in the next few years, as we see the skills changing with digital transformation, and some jobs are going to become redundant. And that client that I mentioned, they're already putting their staff, they're anticipating that happening, and they're putting their staff on training so that they can actually move them into different departments and not make their current, they might have to restructure, or they might have to make that role redundant, but they are enabling their existing employees to have a possibility of employment moving forward with them. In terms of unemployed learnerships, this is very important. Again, to Andrew's point, sometimes the CETA will say, if you get CETA funding, they'll go, okay, you've got your funding, you need to start in 2 weeks, and it's an unemployed learnership, and you have to now recruit learners. So we've started just taking applications throughout the year. So we've got a little a bank there, but it's imperative when it comes to recruitment of unemployed learners that the hosts get involved, that the sponsors get involved wherever possible and actually recruit the learner. We find that learners who are asked to write a detailed letter of motivation to demonstrate their commitment before going into the interview process are more likely to stick around. And the reality is, on some unemployed learners are in it for the stipend, and they're quick to jump out when something better comes along. And at the end of the day, and Andrew, I think you can speak to this, is that you want to absorb the learner.
Yeah, to me, this is the most important part of the whole thing. And we've seen time and time again, when recruitment isn't done properly, you have problems all the way through. If it's not drop-offs very quickly, you have disengaged learners who've joined for the wrong reasons, or not particularly interested in the sector. So this is, if you can get this right, I would say this is 90% of the job. I mean, it's a bold statement, but I think that this is probably the area where you need to focus the most. Partnered with the buy-in process up front, particularly where it's an employed learnership, so your existing staff, but certainly, on the unemployed, and generally just making sure you've got the right people on the program, people who are growth-minded, who are ambitious, who are hungry, who are committed. And generally with those kinds of people, it's the same for a business. When you've got those sorts of people, they are problems become easier to navigate, and they're more resilient, more adaptable. So yeah, I think we've made the point.
Yeah, I think if we're preparing them for the advertising industry, they need to be resilient and adaptable. So it's a good test. Okay, let's get into the delivery side. We've got 12 tips in total, so we've got another 7 to go. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit. But good onboarding goes a fantastic way, and we've learned the hard way about not onboarding students correctly. So actually, for very long, we've always had a whole week dedicated to orientation, learning the learning platform, managing the portfolio of evidence and all the administration that goes with it, but also having a live session, virtual. Most of what we do is virtual since the pandemic, but a live session where students can be onboarded, ask questions. But a recent learning that we wanted to start rolling out across our clients is having a mentor onboarding session as well, because we're realizing those mentors that are involved in the program and involved with their learners, rather than those who don't really know what it's about and haven't been informed, there's a stark contrast in success rates. Andrew, anything from your side?
Yeah, I think, I mean, to that point, I think often there's a focus on the training manager, the person who's running the program, and then you've obviously got the training provider, and then you've got the learners, and so everyone's focused on those, and the managers and the mentors get forgotten, and they are crucial parts of it. So not just in making sure that they are properly invested in the learners' journeys as a crucial part of their. I mean, it's, a big chunk of this is work integrated learning, workplace learning. They're being trained by somebody in the workplace. So if you've got the right person, they understand the program, they're invested in the journey and the learning and the development of the learner, they'll do a lot better. But also, and I'm not sure whether we're going to touch on this later, whether we can certainly seed the thought now, is that this is a fantastic opportunity for junior managers and juniors, or people who are potentially on a management track, to get firsthand experience of management before they're actually promoted into that position. So what we've often seen in successful programs is where a learner gets assigned to somebody who's possibly even been on a learnership program themselves a year or two before, and that person can then guide them through the process and has an understanding of of how the program works. So don't forget, an opportunity for management development for your mentors and managers, and that, in terms of ROI, is another really valuable way to motivate for why these programs are so valuable. So it's just a bit more creative thinking around how you can squeeze even more out of these programs.
Andrew, you are so forward thinking that you've already gone to tip 8. But be fair, it all feeds in. It's wonderful. I just want to add one last thing. So we need to also remember that students come from very different backgrounds, depending on whether we're doing employed, unemployed, but we need to accommodate those backgrounds across stakeholders. We need to be mindful of our privilege. We need to be mindful of personal circumstances, particularly with learners who are earning a stipend. Is that stipend enough? Is it going to get them enough data and enough transport money to get them to and from work if they are physically hosted or if they are working from home? Do they have the right technology? We need to set them up for success. And I've seen instances where a learner is 2 months into the program and I had no idea she was doing everything on her phone and didn't have that technology, but that's sorted. Number 6, I love this because there's positive reinforcement and then there's negative reinforcement, and they both equally have success. So positive reinforcement, obviously incentives, boost motivation, performance significantly. We can look at financial rewards like vouchers or end of year bonus, to non-financial incentives like extra leave days. Please always give your learners, employed learners, study leave days and unemployed learners study leave days as well. But general annual leave days for getting great marks or performing well. And if you're meeting with them regularly internally and you ask them what their marks are, or you just ask us when we give you a report, you will see who deserves that type of positive reinforcement and incentive. Maybe you can send them to a conference or so on. Then some learners find success with penalties for underperformance, and these can be powerful motivators as well. So with unemployed learnerships, the prospect of having a stipend paused due to inactivity or deregistration can be a powerful incentive for the learner to stick with the program, to see it through. And with employed learners, having a payback or a work back clause added to their contracts can also prevent attrition. But one of our great clients, another big client, they celebrate learner performance and success. They host full graduation ceremonies, but they do have large cohorts, and they do award ceremonies for the top performers and top achievers, and they really just halo them to the greater organization, which has made those students really commit because it becomes such an important part of their growth plans within the business.
No, I think that I would always err on the side of positive, incentivization rather than penalization. I think equal measure of both is probably very useful, a bit of stick and carrot. But that point about the graduation ceremony and celebration is such a relevant point, and I think it probably gets forgotten a lot. You don't need to be a big organization to have a graduation or celebration. It can be just a couple of mailers, during the internal mails or in your team chat if you're a small business, or however you communicate with your staff, where you celebrate the performance of the learners, and then at the end, have a couple of drinks, have a party, have a dinner, have something that celebrates their achievements. It doesn't need to be expensive, but positive reinforcement sends the right message to everyone, and it really, really means a lot to frankly to anyone, I think, but certainly to people who've just invested 12 months of their lives onto a fairly arduous enterprise.
Okay, so obviously this goes without saying, and I think we've covered this in a lot of the previous tips, is that this feeds into the positive reinforcement. So put the skills development in their personal development plans and KPIs, so that when you meet with them for their performance appraisals, you're looking at their performance on the learnership as well, and it's counting towards their success in their performance appraisals, how often you take that dipstick. Any insight from you, Andrew?
Yeah, not too much. I mean, I think we've made the points around the performance, but I think actually around incentivization and penalization, but I think this is really just around structuring it into their existing plans when they're employed learners. Making sure that it ties into the framework. I mean, this is a very important part of the work that they need to do in the workplace, but also their career development. It maps against their career development plans. It ladders up to something, and so it raises the stakes and for the learner, I think, in particular, but it also aligns them better with the organizational goals and gives them clearer line of sight as to why they're doing the program. And for unemployed learners, I think they're coming on for a fixed term contract. They should still have performance. You're still looking to performance, positive and negative performance, manage them. I think having that tied in means it's easier if they're underperforming to sit down and have a performance management consultation process or process with them to say, you were supposed to do X, Y, and Z. One of the key imperatives for you joining, for us employing you for this period, was to do this program, and so it's very neatly then tied and very clearly aligned and tied to their ongoing employment. So and obviously the benefits at the end of that are potential absorption. So I would certainly raise the possibility early on. Absorption is obviously a very, very big incentive if it's available to individuals.
So Andrew, you make a good point about unemployed learnership. So when this contracting takes place between the sponsor and the learner, I do encourage looking at creating some clauses, obviously with your legal team, to ensure that the learner is aware of what their responsibilities are in terms of their studies. So once they start the program, then they'll know, but the contracting happens way before then. So there's some clauses that you can add. You could have a financial incentive that if you get 6 months through, you might get a higher stipend, whatever it may be. It could be the opposite. It could be negative reinforcement, but consider making sure that they're logging time in their logbooks, which is the bane of my existence in learnerships, is getting them to log time. But it sets them up for industry, because industry has to log time as well. Okay, Andrew, this is your tip 8, which you covered, and I think I don't need to go too much into details here, but what's very important, as Andrew said, is that we've always had an approach in our careers to have juniors and giants, juniors and giants, so the giants teach the juniors. But in this day and age, the giants are incredibly time stretched. They've got families because they're senior now. They've got a lot of stuff going on. But then there's like this junior or mid-level who really wants to make a big impact in the workplace. They don't have the personal responsibilities that take their time, and they can invest in someone else because they've just been through that themselves. And that is a perfect opportunity for that person to have in their personal development plans, like leadership or management exposure by mentoring a young learner. And it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, you've heard from me. I made this point preemptively, but a crucial part that I think often gets neglected or undervalued, but very important to get right. And I think Sue's just hit the nail on the head again. Just a quick, before you move on to the next tip, a reminder, I've been flagged by the wonderful Kat, that we do have a Q&A. There's a functionality, or the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we have got some time. We are planning on making some time available at the end just for some Q&A, but nothing seems to be coming through. So by all means, if you do have anything, put it in there, and we will make sure that we address it. If it comes up if it naturally comes up into what we're talking about, we can always raise it then. But otherwise, we'll try and pick up anything at the end. But please do make use of that.
Okay, tip 9, communicate constantly and meet frequently. This is across all stakeholders. So as a training institution, we communicate on a weekly basis, telling learners what they need to do, what they need to focus on, what's due when things are happening. And we also offer, which we found very useful, is that a learner can book a one-on-one slot with a program manager who can support them with any administration or content-related queries. And then from our side, we also send either monthly or quarterly reports based on your reporting requirements and red flagging learners to the training managers or mentors. Internally, we encourage you to always meet frequently with your learners, whether online or in person. Mentors should aim for about 2 to 4 hours of one-on-one time a month to work through the learners' logbooks of hours to understand what work can be assigned to them during this time, where they're lacking in time logging. Sometimes a learner gets put into a specific role and they only end up getting experience in that specific discipline when they actually need to get experience across all of it. So the more often we meet, on the mentor meets with the learner, the more they can help give them the exposure that they need to every part of the discipline.
Yeah, so if recruitment was my number one tip, then this is my number two. But again, this is basic, it should be basic business, but it is, one of the things that businesses fail at consistently and across all sectors and all levels is just communication. The programs that work best are the ones where there is the most effective communication, the most transparent communication, the quickest communication. The sooner something gets picked up and flagged, if it's an issue, the sooner it can be rectified. So yeah.
And just to add to that, I forgot the final stakeholder, and that's the learner. And sometimes a learner will go AWOL and then come to us with an issue that could have been resolved. And I try, it's particularly unemployed learners. It happens with employed learners as well. Life gets in the way, but unemployed learners aren't experienced in the work environment and how important it is to feedback. If you make a promise that you're going to hit a deadline, you need to communicate if that's not going to happen. So we also try and do a lot of workplace training with our learners before they go into the workplace, if we are training them before they do that. But it's all stakeholders. Tip number 10, we've got 3 tips left. This is one of the 3. Digitize wherever possible. So goes without saying, the 21st century, the fourth industrial revolution should bring learning into a 21st century manner. So while some teachers still prefer in-person training and paper-based portfolio of evidences, the majority of learnerships can be run completely 100% online, virtually. We can have lectures virtually. We've got a completely digitized portfolio of evidence. The logbook is collaborative. Anybody can access it to see how their learners are doing. We have forgotten the paper-based route when it comes to POE, wherever we possibly can. Andrew, anything from you?
Yeah, look, I think, if you're trying to upskill people to work in an increasingly digital world and a digital workplace, getting them to sit and fill in paper-based things is not going to be serving them any good. And particularly, with employed learners for anyone really, but certainly for unemployed learners, many of whom might not have had the opportunity to engage or do their primary or secondary schooling in an environment which is a wealth of technology. This is a really great opportunity for them to practice and get to start using these tools, which they're going to inevitably use in the workplace. So it's a critical part of maybe not a structured part or not an intentional part of the learning experience, but it is a crucial one nonetheless. The one thing, different seaters, different businesses have different requirements. I think this is digitized wherever possible. Not everything will be legally permissible. Your seater might have issues with certain things, but we'll go, certainly from our side, and we will go to the first extent that we can to make use of technology to streamline the process and make it as easy as possible. And from there, we do our best to work within the frameworks and to push them and challenge them as far as we can. So we don't like to just be told this is the way it's done. We will try and push for progress.
Finally, how do we wrap up and conclude a learnership to ensure success? So this is a bit of a contentious issue. From my experience, let me say that, from my experience, when a student is not paying for their own studies, they might not be as motivated as somebody who is. And that's just the ballgame with learnerships. Either some learners see it as an opportunity to gain a qualification that they've never had the means to do so. I know a ton of learners who have had to drop out of university and the learnership was their opportunity to get a qualification, and they're the ones that are committed. But there does come a time when a learner does need to withdraw or feels that they need to deregister. And sometimes that's not always the best way forward. So we need to remember that, we can get a learner to a specific point, and for whatever unit standards they've received credits for or be deemed competent for, they will get those credits at the end. So it does mean that if they want to come back and complete that qualification later on, they can still do. Although the qualifications all end next year, but they can complete it up until 2027. So they've got 3 years to complete a qualification. It doesn't mean that the cohort that they're on will allow that, but it is possible. So we always try and encourage our students to stick with it and do what they can. And again, we do bend over backwards for our learners to get them through.
Yeah, I think an important part here is just to keep in mind what your BE plans are, what score you need to achieve. Because it's in many cases, if somebody wants to drop off, or they're not committed, or they're underperforming, or you've got a disciplinary issue, it might make sense from if it's an unemployed contract, you might want to terminate that contract, but you might also then want to consider keeping the person on the program to see it through, I think that you've got to bear in mind that there are consequences to deregistration. It means certainly where you're recognizing stipend, that stipend recognition might cease, and so you might actually be willing to let the person stay on a little bit longer, to make sure you're getting better benefits. And there's always the possibility that if there is a dip in motivation, a dip in performance, that might be caused by external factors or personal circumstances that could actually come around. And to Sue's point, we will do our best and we hope that your training providers, if it isn't us, are there to partner the learner and you through that journey to get them back on track, so that everyone benefits and that all the boxes are ticked, to use an analogy we're not crazy on using, but to make sure that the program exits as well as it can be. But just give a bit more thought to the longer term consequences of deregistering or withdrawing somebody, because it might impact on your BE score further down the line. And we'll, with our own clients, if you're working with us, we'll always have that conversation with you and bounce some of the ideas and potential scenarios with you.
Okay, that takes us to our final tip. So, Andrew, I know this speaks to you quite a bit, but I'm going to let you take over here. But keeping in touch with learners after a program ends can be very beneficial long term. From our side, we have a talent network. We've got a platform where our alumni can come and sign up. It's almost like a social network for Red and Yellow. They can network with other alumni. They can look at job postings, because we get inundated with requests for graduates to apply to jobs. So we post them there. But Andrew, I think I'm going to hand over to you here, because I know you've got a point.
Yeah, so just on that, Kat can pop the details in the chat. But if you are looking for talent, if you're an employer looking for talent, you can always email us at talent@redandyellow.co.za. We will assist you then with loading a employer profile and a job listing on the Red and Yellow Connect, which is what it's called, the alumni and student platform that we have. It will allow you to connect with our present and past students, and I think Kat will also then post a link to the platform itself, so you can go on. And for any of the learners or anyone on this session who was a Red and Yellow alumni or current student or current learner, please by all means go and register. And if you are an employer, you can register as well. So we're trying to really grow that base and create a very, very engaged and valued Red and Yellow extended network, where we become more than merely the facilitator, and we've got communities of employers and alumni and students engaging directly with each other. The absorption point here, there's potentially a 12-month period that could elapse. I mean, that really is stretching it between when a learnership ends and when your verification happens. And absorption, those valuable points that hopefully most people don't forget, but they do get forgotten until you come around to verification and you need to count them. That gets counted at date of verification. And the crucial test there is, has somebody been employed? Has the learner been employed? Or is the learner currently employed? So it doesn't have to be with you. It can be with another business. Obviously, easy with you to say they are employed. I can count my absorption points because you know where they are. But if 3, 4, 5, maybe more months have elapsed since you were last in touch with a learner, they disappear, they float off, and you're no longer in touch. You now need to track them down and get proof that they're employed. This can be tricky. So, and we see it time and time again. So keep records, keep in touch. Much easier to suddenly get in touch with them, months down the line to say, yeah, we want to get your details. We need your details so that you can count them for absorption. And something we've also seen that works if you are struggling to really get hold of learners. They're just otherwise motivated or busy. You might want to consider a little financial incentive for them to reach out, a couple of $100 or a voucher here and there. in the context of bonus points is possibly money very well worth spent to make sure that they get in touch and they send you their information. So, just something to keep in mind. I think I've said enough on absorption. I'm also just conscious of time. I think we're within.
Yes, we've got a question here. So Onke has asked, are learners afforded the opportunity to work on real campaigns or projects during the learnership? 100% yes. So let me talk about the workplace learning component. With all learnership, you have a number of credits, and which translate into a number of notional hours that you have to log throughout that time. 30% of that needs to be logged to the theory that you're learning, and 70% of that needs to be logged to real workplace learning. Actually, when I say real, it doesn't have to mean that the learner is now going to write the content plan for your biggest client. It means that the learner can actually write the big content plan alongside a skilled worker within your organization, and that learner has the opportunity to do the same brief that someone else who in the organization gets paid to do, and they can cross-check what they did compared to what the skilled worker did. So we call that mock workplace learning, when a learner isn't quite ready to do the actual task, but wants to get exposure to it. And so absolutely, if you're hosting a learner, or if you're a learner being hosted, tell your mentor, I want to be involved in brainstorms, I want to be involved in all the meetings, because you get to log all of that time. So if we don't have any further questions, Andrew, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, Sue. Yeah, I mean, that was a really kind of quick whistle-stop tour through. I mean, there's Sue and I could probably spend 4 hours just going into some of the things that we've learned and experienced over time. And we actually spent a lot of time putting all this together. So I hope there's been value. We really enjoyed putting this together. As I said, there is a blog post that will be shared after this. We'll be sharing the slides. We'll be sharing the recording. If we covered something you aren't clear on, or if you've got a difference of opinion, or if you've got something to add, if you think that we've missed out something that worked very well for you, or there's something that doesn't work and we haven't picked that up, please send that through. There is still an opportunity to add it to the blog post. We will credit you for any suggestions made if you would like to be credited. If not, that's all good. But yeah, please do reach out and let us know if you found it valuable. Hopefully you did. Just a quick run through of some of our upcoming learnerships. We've got business analysis and user-centered design starting the 24th of July, and on the 31st of July, digital marketing and digital content and copywriting. And then what we often do, particularly for bigger clients, and that's largely just because of the costs involved, is customization of learnerships. We've done big entire customizations and built entirely new learnership programs using existing qualification and accreditation frameworks for specific needs, and that's something that we can do. And also, if you've got a closed cohort, or you want a closed cohort for 10 or more, we would look at that. So yeah, please do let us know if you are interested in discussing further. Free copy available here. We will share a link in the follow-up email as well. So you are going to be getting a lot of things in email tomorrow. Hopefully at least one or two of them, if not more, are valuable. A free copy of our learnership guide. You can find it there. You can search it on our website. You can probably also Google it. But if not, the link will be in the chat, but also shared over email tomorrow. And we hope you find it useful. Again, feedback, constructive criticism, always helpful. Yeah, I think that is it. I think we do want to ask one final poll, which we're going to post now. Really, this is just to, if I could ask everyone just to participate here. We're planning on doing a lot more of these webinars. For those who've been to some of our sessions in the past, we've tried, in-person breakfast. We've done webinars. We're trying to get them going, but making sure that the format is optimized for your needs. So yeah, we want to find out how you heard about this, if the time works for you, if the duration works for you, if the format works for you, if you'd rather meet us in person, we're happy to do that as well. Really, what we're trying to do is provide value to you in a manner that works for you. So your feedback is absolutely crucial. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you got value out of it. There are still a couple of minutes remaining while people fill in the poll. If you have a question, please do punch it in the Q&A and we can address it now. But other than that, I'd like to thank everyone for taking this hour out of your day to join us. We hope to see many of you very soon. For those we are already working with, for those who we have worked with before and who are thinking of working with us again, get in touch, and we will get in touch with you. And for anyone who is who hasn't embarked on the learnership journey for organization before and is and needs to, is now approaching the size or scale where you need to think about these sorts of things, please let us know. We will, to the points we've made here, we will try and make the whole process as smooth and as easy for you as possible, and guide you through those through the initial program. I was going to say the initial weeks and months, but the reality is the first program is it's a crucible for anyone jumping into these sorts of programs. Thank you, Carmelita. I haven't got my glasses on and that was small, but thank you very much for joining us. And so, yeah, thank you everyone, and we'll hope to see you at the next session, if not before then.
Thanks everybody.